So obviously, Edward the First, who you point out, really should perhaps be called Edward the Third. His father is King Henry, so he becomes king. But what were his particular strengths that propelled him to that leadership role as a king?
Gosh, something I should have prefaced this by saying it's very kind of you to tout the book. The book came out in 2008 and I finished it in 2007, so I'm having to really kind of mime my memory here. Let's start with the most obvious. Edward is portrayed in the Mel Gibson film, 1995 Mel Gibson film Braveheart, and he's called by, I think, both his allies and his enemies LongShanks. Now that's one of the few accurate bits in that film. LongShanks was a name with contemporary warrant. So a couple of late 13th century English chroniclers called him Edward with the Longshanks or Edward the Long, because he was very tall. Edward was buried in Westminster Abbey when he died in 1307, and when they cracked open his tomb in the late 18th century and measured him, his corpse, which was kind of richly dressed and wearing an imitation crown, when they measured him, he was 6'2", after 4.5 centuries of shrinkage. So he was jolly tall. And we know from sort of the money that was spent on him in official accounts as a child, he was, as all aristocrats were really, he was encouraged to hunting and sort of outdoor pursuits from a young age. The great contrast with Edward is his father, who you mentioned, Henry III, who was almost the opposite of what a successful king ought to be, or was thought necessary for a successful king. So Henry was not particularly martial, although when roused he would lead armies. He himself shunned away from normal aristocratic pursuits like hunting and tournaments, which made him very odd, I think, amongst English kings and also amongst the sort of English warrior elite. Edward, by contrast, I think probably almost in spite of his father's preferences, as teenagers do, tend to sort of say, well, I want to go to tournaments. So you can see him tourneying and throwing himself into tournaments from his mid-teens. And he becomes very good at it.